Let me start by saying good morning, everyone. Good morning, Honorable Minister for Works and Housing, Babatunde Raji Fashola. It's been, of course, I've had the opportunity of interviewing you twice. The number of times that I've approached you for an interview, that in itself says a lot that you have the sense of responsibility and accountability to people. Back to your question, Mr. Adeniyi. I wish I could say yes, that this debates really have been relevant, because looking back down the line, every president that has emerged, if I'm not exaggerating, I stand to be corrected, has never really attended any debates. All the ones that have, become president from 1999, Olusegun Adeniyi did not attend any debates. I'm not too sure Goodluck Jonathan did. Yeah, there was one particular one he attended, But to a very large extent, none of our presidential or presidents have attended, any debates. That in itself says a lot. But then there's a growing argument for debates to be not only made compulsory, but to be actually institutionalized, backed by law, that it must be made compulsory at every level, whether you're talking about local, state, or national level, that anyone who wants to apply for a job, because that's what they're applicants for a job. And the debate is where you tell the people exactly what you have to offer. Not just what you have to offer, but how you're going to go about doing whatever it is that you say your objectives are. Because the question of how seems to be what is missing in all the debates. I mean, we just watched the 12 years of EiE, and none of those candidates said anything about how they were going to, fix the health sector, housing, or whatever. One thread that runs through all of their contributions has been, I will do this, I will do that, I'm going to do this. But how? That how seems to be what is missing. And on the issue of whether they're relevant, I'm sorry, they haven't been so far. Hopefully, maybe going forward, they will be. But for now, I'm not too sure.
We'll come back. Now, with a multitude of candidates, how do you select those who debate without appearing discriminated? You have experience in debate, and how do you select those people that will debate in a situation where you have, especially since most of the debates are here at the state level, if you have 30 parties, how do you select those to debate?
Thank you very much. I plead to stand on existing protocols and to say that I have had the privilege of participating in election debates, in fact, anchoring election debates in Nigeria since 2007, effectively. I worked in the background for some years before that. And to say that what we have had in the past is a situation where we have never had the two or three major presidential candidates stand on the same rostrum, on the same stage to debate. At a time when President Olusegun Obasanjo, or candidate Obasanjo as he then was, agreed to participate in the debates, his opponent would decline, and vice versa. That has always been the situation. When President Buhari agreed to attend a debate, that was in 2008, at the ECOWAS Secretariat, his opponent declined to debate. And the same goes for what happens at the state level. Now, back to your question, what we have done at the level of the Nigeria Election Debates Group each time there were presidential governorship debates is to conduct a poll. We engage a pollster and conduct a poll, and the outcome of the poll actually determines who comes on the debate. Because in situations where you have up to 15, 12, 15 presidential candidates, 12 or 15 vice presidential candidates, 12 or 15 governorship candidates at state level, you cannot have all of them on one stage. In fact, in 2011, I remember the debate that we had at the International Conference Center. We had to split the debate into two sessions, two different sessions. We had an afternoon session and we had an evening session. And what did we do? We categorized the candidates on the basis of their political parties in alphabetical order. That way we were able to have, I think we had 12 presidential candidates who agreed to participate. So we had 6 in the afternoon session, 6 in the evening session. That was what we did in alphabetical order, because that is one way for the political parties to say you are mismatching the candidates when you pair them for the debates. So just follow the alphabetical order of the political parties and not of the candidates, of the parties they represent. But other than that, the best thing to do is to do a poll and let the electorate or the people decide who should be on that debate. But even after that, you still see a situation where presidential candidates will decline. Like in 2019, you recall in 2019, the debate we had at the Hilton, Transcorp Hilton, at the last minute, the two major presidential candidates, the APC and the PDP, declined to participate. Even though the PDP candidate was already in Transcorp, was already at the venue. The moment he learned that President Buhari was not coming, he refused to participate. Right, so it was only the vice presidential debate that you had the two major candidates, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo and Peter Obi, participate actively.
No, this now brings me to the question: how do we get the parties to subscribe to the idea of debate? I mean, the major parties. How do we ensure that they send their candidates? Yeah, how do we institutionalize the idea of debate such that the major parties will subscribe to having their candidates debate their opponents before the election? And we don't have a situation where most of the candidates that are debating are no pass. Because you can even get no pass by this idea of polling. I mean, they have their people on the social media, they win the polls, and you know that when the election comes, they are not there. So how do we get the parties, the real parties, with parties that have members in the National Assembly, who have governors and all that? How do we get them to subscribe to the idea of debate before election?
Well, one of the challenges, I mean, with the lawmakers, we saw what happened with the electoral law and how, to a very large extent, it was an expression or reflection of, what the lawmakers wanted for themselves from, to a very large extent. I don't want to scandalize our lawmakers. Now, the thing is, for the political parties, the fundamental question for them would be, do they really want to put their best foot forward? If that's the case, then within the parties themselves, they would want to explore and ensure that all the democratic processes that you need internally are, exhausted, so that the best man or best woman comes forward. That's the first stage. And then secondly, once they get that right, the parties will not, they will not be afraid to put whoever has emerged, forward. And then they will see that the debates are a platform, that they can actually use to sell whatever ideals or ideas that not just the individual, but the party itself, stands for. Unfortunately, we're back to where the parties are not necessarily on the driver's seat of policies, that they want to come up with. It's usually the deep pockets. So whoever has the deepest pocket most likely is the one that will emerge. So how can we get it back to where the party is on the driver's seat? Like we used to have in the days of UPN, you know, and all the rest of them, where the policies that Jakonde, for example, you know, were actually driven by the party. You know, they were party-centric. So if the party is not in the driver's seat, chances are that you will not get the right, you know, the right person to emerge. But can the parties ensure that they have that democratic process internally? If the parties are, you know, in support of it, the chances are that the National Assembly toe the line and say, look, thus far we'll go. Going forward, we want the very best man to emerge. Right? Yeah. So you have both the political parties, the National Assembly, society itself saying, look, this is the barest minimum. This is the irreducible, standard that we want. And anything below that, we will not stand for. If we're able to get it right at that level, then we can begin to talk about institutionalizing, you know, the debate process.
Before you respond, can the process involve INEC in such a way that there will be criteria of how many seats a party must have won before it can qualify for a debate? Because I don't enjoy this kind of debate where you know that the people that are debating are not people that are likely to get the votes on the election day. So how do we, can the process involve INEC in the selection of candidates to debate?
The process can involve INEC, and I must tell you that we have involved INEC in the past. In fact, as we speak, there has been a bill at the National Assembly for well over 10 years, which seeks to institutionalize debates, which was supposed to make debates mandatory and compulsory for political parties and for candidates. That bill was sponsored by the Broadcasting Organizations of Nigeria, under which the Nigerian Elections Debate Group operates, and supported by the Independent National Electoral Commission. But of course, as has become customary in Nigeria, what does not suit the lawmakers in Nigeria, what is not in their personal and political interests, they will do everything to undermine. That was what has happened. And one of the reasons why it's become a bit difficult to get candidates and their political parties to subscribe to debates is the fact that the candidates, from experience, the candidates themselves do not even know what their political parties stand for. They don't know the programs of their political parties. They don't know the manifestos of their political parties. They do not know what the constitutions of their political parties say. So that is why you see that governors, candidates get to power as governors, and they begin to implement personal agenda rather than party agenda. Like she said, in the Second Republic, you could not go outside the manifesto of the UPN if you were a UPN governor. You could not go outside of the MPN manifesto if you were an MPN governor, or a PROP governor, or a GMPP governor, or an MPP governor, and as the parties were at that time. But these days, what do you have? Tell me, anybody here can tell me, what does the PDP manifesto say? What does the APC manifesto say? Is there any of the governors of these parties that is implementing the manifestos, the programs of their political parties? Because they don't even know it. They don't make reference to it at all. In 2015, I was privileged to conduct debates for the CDD, and we brought in party officials to come and speak. Not the candidates now. These were what we call town hall meetings organized by the CDD, and it was meant to educate Nigerians. Now, by the way, debates are media events. They are media events because the candidates and the political parties have an opportunity to reach millions of people on television and on radio all at the same time. Much more than you would benefit as a candidate if you went to address a rally, say, in Lagos, in Kano, Kaduna, or in Akure. But with a 2-hour debate, you could reach millions of people. But these people will not come for these debates because they don't even understand what is embedded in their party manifestos. And they are afraid of being questioned. They are afraid of committing themselves on record for people to remember and recall that in 2015 or in 2019, you said this and you said that, and you are not doing what you said.
Yeah, but another thing about debates is debates are actually for the undecided. So how many voters in Nigeria are undecided before election? Because people decide for several reasons. Reasons of ethnicity, religion, and all that. So you are targeting a small core of voters. The people who have not decided who they will vote for on the basis of other considerations. So
if you did some sampling before an election, you will discover that the undecided are in fact more than the decided.
Even within Nigerian environment?
Yes.
Okay.
They are the undecided. So very many voters don't decide who they want to vote for until probably a few days to the election. Very many. Only card-carrying members of political parties, you will say, are decided voters. And even then, even those decided voters, those decided party members can also swing their votes on election day based on what they hear and see through debates.
Okay, good.
To that, I mean, it was obvious Ekwesili that talked about the weaponization of poverty. There is also the weaponization of ignorance. Okay. I mean, the population of where you have literacy level is at the lower 60s, about 62% in Nigeria. I mean, compare that to Ghana, where it's about 77%. The global average, literacy average, is about 85%, which means Nigeria is not doing well at all. Now, to even talk about deciding or not deciding, where is the mind, as in, has the mind been so sharpened by education to start with, in a way that enables people to even question whether, oh, this person that wants to emerge as a local government chairman or senator or House of Reps member or governor or president, do they have what it takes to deliver on the deliverables? Can the people to ask such questions in the first place, to now get to the point where, okay, I'm undecided, you know, should I vote for Babatunde Raji Fashola or should I vote for whoever? People must be equipped to start with, and it starts from the education sector. It starts from educating the populace. The more educated the populace is, the more, it is, I mean, the easier it is for them to actually be able to decide or choose not to decide until, the right candidates who, emerges maybe through the debate platforms. And then they're able to say, okay, I didn't think that much about this person, but he seems to have performed above, what I expected. Or they performed below what I actually expected, or they lived up to, expectation. So it starts from educating the populace, and that's maybe where the media just report. Basically, what we've been doing to a very large extent. This is not a self-indictment. To a very large extent, the media has not played the role of that agenda-setting role. That's very vital. We've not really been able to do that. We've not been able to interrogate this, the people who come up and, present themselves for elections. We've not been able to, go back to Babatunde Fashola, for example, and say, okay, let's go back to when he was governor. How did he perform in the 8 years as governor of the most populous state in Nigeria, Lagos State? Did he perform, above average? Did he do what we expected him to do as far as water is concerned, health, education, and all of those things? Job of the media to do and put it before the people so that the people themselves can decide. I think that's...
Yeah, talking again about debates. I mean, globally, the value of debate is declining in the sense, value of television and radio debate is declining in the sense that there are other platforms. Candidates are going directly to the voters. YouTube, TikTok, even using influencers. So how do you think we can enhance, which has not really been deepened in our country, given all these platforms? How do you think we can get people to engage more in debates? Because I still believe in the value of debate. Like you said, we have never had a situation where the leading presidential candidates are really, because the value of debate is that we will not only test them in terms of ideas, we will test them too in terms of temperament. I mean, people have lost the election on the basis of just looking at their wristwatch because they feel bored. Oh, you are bored. So how do we, I just want us to engage how we can enhance this process of debate, especially at the presidential level. What can we do differently to make both the candidates and the citizens aware that this thing is actually very important?
I'll begin by referring to what she said earlier on. And this is a process that has started. Yeah. We started it some years back. And that is by getting to the people at the grassroots. Yeah. Not every Nigerian speaks the English language, the medium through which debates are conducted. And so, for instance, when in 2016 or so, we had the Ondo State governorship debates, some of the candidates actually brought up that idea, and we bought it, which was that they wanted to speak in their local language. So we had to get interpreters. We allowed them to speak in their local language and get interpreters for English transmission. That is one way of getting to the people. It is that we must get to them in the language they understand, not in the highfalutin English language that we conduct these debates. Now, you also made reference to what is happening in the Western world, where candidates and political parties are getting directly to the people. The difference between those societies and ours is the fact that we have failed to reckon with the illiterate population in our country. There's so much noise. I pardon me to use that word. There's so much noise about the influence of the social media. But if you do a critical analysis of the extent to which the social media goes today, you will discover it is 90% in the urban centers. How many of our people in the rural areas engage with social media? How many of them watch YouTube? How many of them have access to streaming of programs and debates?
The importance of radio.
Boils down to the importance of radio, especially. Radio is very critical, and in the languages that they understand.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, we just talked about the illiteracy level, and come to think of it, is the so-called illiterates that actually go out to vote on election day. So they really should be the target. Whatever needs to be done, whether it's radio, TV, social media, they really need to be factored in seriously.
Yeah. As a parting shot, I'll tell this story, which I shared with Yemi. I mean, I never really considered debates important until 2007. I was the editor of This Day in 2006 when AD was, the media was more or less in bed with AD. That was the situation. So we were interested in who was going to be the AD candidate in Lagos. So when we heard that a certain Baba Tunde Fashola was going to be just who is Fashola? We never, it wasn't, As chief of staff, he was different from his predecessor. His predecessor was a political, but as chief of staff, he was just a technical man doing his job. But the first channel debate, he floored everybody. By the second debate, so it was from Lagos I learned the value of debate. It was the debate that brought out Fashola in 2007 in Lagos.
All right.
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay. I love it. Before we round up, we are going to allow members of the audience, we have 2 questions. So the first 2 hands will be given the opportunity to ask our panelists questions. We have 1 question over there. Hostess, if you can please go over there. And the second hand, please. So there's not going to be another question. All right, so just that 1 question.
My name is Hamisu from Hamisu Educational. My question is simple. High level of illiteracy that is keep on pumping in this debate or in this just little presentation. But if we look at far back 1979 election, that's the first political election, first election that brought political parties into offices. Most of the people that they are voting, are they illiterates or they are literate? I want you to define the illiteracy of the voter. Is it misinformation, or is it lack of reading, or is it lack of reading and writing? Let us be sincere to ourselves. An average villagers in the far north, call it the tropical northern axis, understood clearly about the Hausa BBC for the past 40 years. And it's a medium that they use to propagate a lot of candidacy. What is the role of these media houses that we have now? To go down the lane into the typical African villagers so that they should understand that they are not illiterate politically. Thank you.
Yeah, I think your question is clear.
It's quite clear.
Sometimes we exaggerate this number of illiteracy. People are not really illiterate. Because they are sometimes they are more informed than some of us.
I think that you, in a way, answered the question that you asked, which goes back to what I said before, that the medium of communication is very key, is important. You made reference to northern Nigeria, where even in the most remote villages, you will see a northerner with a transistor radio, and he's listening to either the BBC or VOA or Radio Deutsche Welle. And he or she gets his political education through that medium. Now, political education is very different from book education. Let me put it that way. It's different from book education. You and I may have book education, but we may not be politically educated. And it is very correct to say that most of us who live in the urban areas are very uninformed politically. Whereas our parents back home in the villages are better informed politically than we are. You go back to the villages now and you see an uncle, an auntie tell you something about politics in that area that you have never heard of, that you don't know of. So it goes back to what I said earlier on. Let us domesticate political education. Take it to the grassroots. Take it to our people. Educate them. Let them understand what is happening and help them in that process to make the right choices. Informed choices. That's all debates are about. Helping the people to make informed choices.